Hello, Kristen, and welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I am great. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. You have a long list of accolades. So maybe we start off by telling us about who you are, what you do in the world, your family.
Yeah. Well, I was a former neonatal intensive care nurse. And that's kind of what started me on this whole journey. So I did that for 14 years. My path started to change significantly when my first son was born in 2015. I found myself becoming really curious about food, what I was going to put in his body, what his first foods were going to be. I now see it as divine intervention. I feel like it was just pressed on my heart, like look into it. Prior to that, I was just an indoctrinated nurse that believed in everything I was taught in school. And so I became obsessed with food, about how to nurture our children, nourish them. And from there, I became a holistic nutritionist. And that's when really all the light bulb moments in healthcare and our children and how we're raising them kind of started to come together. And I was seeing a lot of gaps in the conventional medicine in the world I was working. And then my second son, kind of in 2018, kind of helped like reiterate this, that they are born perfectly as they are. We don't need anything beyond God's perfect divine design, and our bodies, that we can nurture them, nourish them. And yeah, from there, I then had my third. We're getting into all the stories, but I was like, this is how it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
comes
yeah.
together. Each of my children have completely changed my path. And my third birth was, we're going to talk about it. The name of the podcast was my redemption birth. And from that birth led me to Reclaiming Birth Gathering, which is now my main mission, focus, and trying to educate as many women as possible, families, really.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, former NICU nurse turned insane birth advocate. And now you've started this incredible conference that's really transforming the birth space. And that's happening in Canada. You're also my first Canadian on the
Oh,
podcast, which is
amazing.
exciting. Yeah. So, the one that took place last year in October was in Ontario. And now this one coming up here in just a couple months is in Montreal. Is that
Yes, we
right?
have
Yes.
Montreal coming up in April, and then our original is back again in October.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So, that'll all be linked below in the show notes. So, definitely check that out. Awesome. Well, why don't you take us then back to, we'll get into your birth stories. The first one you said was back in 2015, 15,
Yeah.
is that right? Yeah. Who are you back then? What did you believe about birth? How were you preparing? Take us back, wherever you want to start.
Yeah. Well, that is when I was indoctrinated NICU nurse, meaning it's a pretty toxic environment. If you've ever been exposed to it, ever been in there, very high opinions, which you could say maybe there's high opinions on the other side too. But um, we definitely believed at the time home birth was dangerous, reckless, stupid. I got in fights with, friends that were thinking of choosing that. I thought home birth should be illegal at this point in my life. You see the worst of the worst, and you think that's what birth is, and you think it's dangerous. Thank goodness for the medical system. We're saving all these babies. We're saving all these women from this dangerous experience that they have to go through. And when I became pregnant with my first, how did I prepare? Well, in my mind, I was like, I know birth. I'm just going to go to the hospital. They'll tell me what to do, and a baby's going to be born. That is literally what I knew about birth. And so that's what happened. I had full testing, like right from the beginning. I look at this now, I think that our responsibility and our authority, like how we take autonomy of our bodies, is really given up at conception. Because as soon as, we pee on that stick, it's like, okay, now we need that first dating ultrasound. Now we need that appointment for the blood work. And then you're trapped in that system and
Mm.
everything becomes outside of you. And that's what happened to me. All the blood work, the ultrasounds, the tests, the sugary drink, like all of it. And I ended up having a stretch and sweep. I didn't know anything about it. Just told, just to make sure that you don't go post dates, and was GBS positive, all the things. So the stretch and sweep led to an induction, epidural, and by the grace of God, I think that I didn't end up in a C-section, but that's usually the funnel of events. And so, baby boy was born and given to me, and at that time, I thought nothing of it. I thought, yeah, that's birth, and it's really interesting now because we had a really trying postpartum, it was really difficult. The lack of bonding, breastfeeding was just atrocious. It was just the mom guilt, like where's my maternal instincts? Why am I not bonding to this baby? What is, what was wrong with me? Which led to a whole cycle of thoughts. And it wouldn't be till years later that I would realize that, I've written about it now, that it all started with the stretch and sweep.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. Women blame themselves. We blame ourselves for this enormous medical system. We think, surely it was my body that was the problem. We miss it. We miss that physiological birth is one thing. And then when you start messing with it, when you start messing with it right at the beginning, when you start to have that power dynamic with a doctor that's telling you this is what we have to do, and you don't even know you can say no. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. And we don't even connect the dots like, oh, all that Pitocin, that epidural. My milk didn't come in very well then after that. And then we think, oh, I just can't breastfeed. I'm just not I don't know how to do it. My body didn't know how to do it. No, we fiddled with that process, that all the hormonal cascade that's supposed to happen that then brings your milk in. It's like the cascade doesn't end at birth. It just keeps going then into motherhood, and then all through, I have a 4-year-old, so I'm up to 4-year-old life. Unless we reclaim it, they're going to claim it if we don't claim it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, why don't you take us then into your second son's birth?
Yeah, two
Okay.
sons. Yeah, it is really interesting, like just thinking how much power we can give up over ourselves without even realizing it, just because we've been conditioned for so long to trust, these experts, trust the system. And I tell people now, thinking about birth, if you want to learn about birth, if you want to know about it, do not ask a nurse, do not ask like an OBGYN. They know nothing about actual process of physiological birth, about babies, or any of it. Like those are the last they know about emergencies and interventions, but do not ask them about birth or anything beyond that. Yeah, because I was that. I didn't know. And my second son, when he was born, I was starting to be a little bit more aware, but I still wasn't there yet. I still had a lot of fears that I had to still let go of from, the NICU time that I spent. But at this point, I was like, I'm not having a stretch and sweep, and I will never be induced again, because it was a pretty horrific experience. Like I just didn't even know enough about that with the Pitocin. I was like, okay, it's like a gradual, increase on the IV. So it probably will feel gradual within me. There's nothing gradual about it. It goes from 0 to like, oh my gosh, like I need an epidural immediately. Like it is just like there's no runway to ease into it. It's just, yeah, it's just, it's a lot for anyone that maybe have experienced that. I know people are relating. And so my second son, I was like, I'm not having an induction, so I'm going to do everything as natural as possible. But I was still not even sure what that meant. So I was like, okay, I'm getting close to my dates coming up. I was still in the system. I said no to the gestational diabetes drink. I said no to a lot of things, but I was still in their funnel. And so I was getting close to the dates overdue. And they're like, we're going to have to book your induction. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want that. So I did agree to another stretch and sweep, which was again horrific. I was pretty disappointed in myself for doing that, but I thought, well, that's better than having the artificial induction. And when I think back, even at that mindset, and how many women, there's probably others out there that think that, well, going through this violation is better than that violation, like how we have to kind of like juggle like that experience. And so I agreed to another one. And I mean, they are so painful. I remember with my first, like not being aware, all I was told was a little pressure, a little pressure. I just remember wanting to jump off the table. It was just so incredibly painful. And so I did agree to another stretch and sweep, despite how I was feeling inside about it. And then I did try natural inductions. I was like, okay, I'll go see my chiropractor with electro therapy. Like, they had little things you could put on my back. Okay, I'll go see someone that does acupuncture. I was like trying all these things, but now I realize there's no such thing as natural induction. There's only induction. The baby's not ready to come out. Baby's not ready to come out. But I was trying to think I was doing things a little bit more on my terms, and so I did go into labor, and I was feeling my contractions, and okay, we have to go to the hospital, and that was incredible. Thank goodness we lived close enough. That was incredibly uncomfortable being in a car with contractions. Oh my gosh, like
Mm,
when I just think about this now, it's like it just doesn't make sense why you would interrupt the whole birthing experience, right? Like where you're at, but it's like, yep, okay, go in the car where you can't get comfortable, trying to be strapped in and going through this intensity, and then sit through triage, get to another bed to, and so that's what happened, trying to move along, and you can't settle in, you can't get out of your neocortex, right? So your body
no.
can't allow the endorphins to take over, so you're just, it's intense. And so again, I was like, epidural, please, like I cannot handle this, and especially not knowing enough about the body physiology or any of these things yet. But I remember the OB that I had at the time, he was pretty funny, because I was like, they said, your waters haven't broken. He's going to ask if you want them to break, but you can say no. And so he came in. He's like, okay, how about we break your waters? And I was like, no, I don't want anything to be meddled with. And he's like, okay. He's like, natural. We'll do as natural as possible. And he's like, but you did have an epidural. So he was like, kind of like giving me a bit of a hard time. And I was like, yes, you're right. Well, I'm trying here. And it was that one where I did ask for delayed cord clamping. I was like, I want the cord to be white in the hospital. Our delayed cord clamping. I keep doing this because it's like it's all just
I
like
know
nonsense
it
I make
is.
up. We do 45 seconds, maybe 60 seconds max for delayed cord clamping. But I asked him, I was like, make sure the cord is white. And so baby was born, placed in my chest. And this is when I was starting to get my voice and awareness. And I was like, absolutely nothing is going to go in him. So, no to the erythromycin, no to the vitamin K. And I was like, he is perfect the way God designed him. God doesn't make mistakes. Humans do. Like, we not taking this baby away to be injected by something when God knows exactly what he's doing. And so that was a huge eye opener. That's when I really got to stand firm in that position, because I just would watch this beautiful baby grow, thrive. And I just remember thinking, what a lie us parents have been taught, that they need anything else outside of us. And just watching, this beautiful baby boy just thrive. And I thought, wow, we've all been duped. And so that was kind of a big eye opener for me. And that's when I really kind of started, I guess, to find my advocacy voice. And that would have been around 2018.
Amazing. Yeah, I know. Imagine how much propaganda it took for all of us to believe that getting in the car, like deep in active labor, is a good idea. Like, we
Oh
just
my
believe that's
gosh.
normal. I
Yes.
know. It's shocking. And I did it too. I mean, we all do it until we don't.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. What a beautiful story, though. And I love that you're stepping into just taking ownership. I think that's such an important piece. Like, women they still want this. They want to go into the hospital and just like muscle through it somehow and not get the drugs. Like, they think they want a natural birth, but they don't know that that's going to mean stepping into your, like, taking ownership and deciding what you want, and realizing that you do have agency. That's, I think, the biggest hurdle. So it sounds like you hurdled that one, and then you come into baby number 3, or is this before 2020 or after 2020? Because I know there's some stuff going on in the background. So tell us what you want to go
Yeah.
next.
There was some stuff going on in the background. So as I mentioned, I found my voice in 2018. Started to share what I could about childhood immunizations, but basically more of just like how beautiful we've been created, like and just
Mm,
talking about that. I was starting to get frowned upon at work just because of things I was saying, teaching, but I was witnessing things. At work, I was seeing things from a totally different lens now. It was like this whole veil had been lifted, and I could see things, from just a totally different viewpoint. I was watching our microprems, get ready to 23 weeks they're born. I was watching them grow, get bigger, thrive, and all of a sudden at 60 days of life need their 60-day shots, and watch them completely regress, needing to go back on ventilators, breathing support, and all these interventions to help them. And I was watching our language, just passing it off from nurse to nurse, and just being like, oh well, they had their shots today, so this is expected. This is a normal side effect. And I was like, there's nothing normal about this. And then I started to kind of witness more what was happening with babies, with mothers, how we were taking babies away from their mothers, placing them in isolates alone just because they didn't match a certain birth weight. Like there was just so watching, how aggressive some of the labors were at the births, the episiotomies, like, the C-section, like all of it. I just was seeing it all from a different view. And my soul was dying every day, was just being crushed. And 2020 came and I started to see more things happening. What they're saying on the media was not what was happening in the hospital. So that was not making sense to me. We were isolating moms. If they're in antenatal, they were only allowed to have one visitor the whole time. So they were isolated from friends, family, companionship. When their babies were born, there was only one parent allowed in the NICU the entire time. So they were having to navigate this scary time, all this information alone, without their children if they had any. C-sections, fathers were not allowed in the room, mothers again alone. We normally as NICU nurses would go into the OR room, receive baby in our arms, take them and love them and clean them up to bring back to mom. But now we weren't allowed to walk into the room anymore, the OR room. So babies were placed in a cot and literally pushed out the door to us. And I just thought, this is horrific. Like, what are we doing? How are we taking away like this, like all of humanity, this care for the most fragile beings? Like they're like babies, like they're just born. So I was horrified. I started to speak up quite loudly, which led me to losing my career, my license, and everything. I spoke up for several years, just while everything was going on, just to try to help bring awareness and help all these women and mothers and families. And at this point in 2020, when I was seeing all this go on, we were looking for other options. Well, what can families do? What can mothers do? I was introduced to a beautiful woman, Billie Harrigan. This is her life's work. She's an elder, wise woman in this area. She's been doing this for over 40 years, and introduced to her and home births and undisturbed physiological birth, and hearing what she was doing and having hope that there was another option for women. And at this point, I was also learning a lot more about what birth could be, what birth should be, what was a possibility. And this is when I felt robbed of an experience I didn't know existed. And that rocked me because I thought, I don't know if I'll get to experience this. I don't know if I'll experience my femininity in its fullness. I don't know if I'll be able to experience my body and how it was created to grow life and bring life into this world. And I just thought no one should ever have to feel that way. We should all know what is available to us, what is out there. We should all have this information to make choices. And so 2020 was pretty loud in that area of just helping women find their power and come home with someone who knows skills and can help them. And when we were blessed with a third, we weren't sure if we were going to, but we were. And I was able to have her at home with Billie Harrigan out of system. She's a traditional birth companion. And it was the hardest, most incredible thing I'd ever gone through, to feel my body in its fullness, in that intensity, to have my husband at my side. It was all in my back. And so he never took his hands off my back for that counter pressure. He tried different things, the shower, this and that, and, eventually just find what works for you. And I found myself just collapsed across the kitchen floor, holding on to the chair leg. And that's where I was able to kind of go into that liminality space where I was able to get out of my head and allow my body to take over and move through the intensity, but still have those micro naps that were like, 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds long. Like it was kind of so fascinating. And baby girl was born.
Wait. I want to back up. Yeah. I want to like really go slow through this part of the story. Okay. And also, like, bravo. Thank you for your courage and for honoring what you knew to be the truth and standing up for it in the medical system. That's incredibly hard to do. And it does come at a cost. And that was, the cost was your career. And most people aren't willing to do that. And so they stay stuck in the system, and they don't even let themselves wake up to the potential truth that birth can be different. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for the women that you've reached because of that. And yeah, okay, so let's back up to the beginning of this third birth. No, oh, it's so good. So you're preparing for birth. You know Billy Harrigan at this point, and you are walking with her. What made you choose? Obviously, you probably had a relationship with her, and so it made it very easy to choose her to be your birth companion. But I guess start there. Start becoming pregnant with your third baby and making that choice then. Obviously, you'd gone like done a lot of mental hurdling and landed on birth is a natural physiological process, and you were choosing to honor that and do that with your third baby. But what did that actually like look like in preparing for the birth?
Yeah.
And you said you had a little bit more exposure to birth. Does that mean you witnessed some other births, or were you just really watching a ton of births? I know I was just like watching birth on Instagram constantly. Anyway, maybe take us back to getting pregnant with her.
Yeah. We kind of talked like on off screen if this would like fit in, but it kind of does. So between my first two sons, I did have a loss, and that loss, this all comes together. That loss shattered me. Like I was just devastated. Lost that baby at 13 weeks. It was 2 weeks of bleeding prior to that. I
Mm.
just, I'd been in the system, ultrasounds, and the night we lost that baby, I just seen their beating heart. I have no idea. I keep thinking this one was a girl, but I don't know. I was too scared to look at the baby at the time, but it shattered me. I just remember feeling just broken and devastated, and the whole thing of like, well, what if? What did I do? What did I do? And what did I do wrong? Right? And then especially seeing the ultrasounds and seeing this, but like they were growing, and then I was able to have second child, rainbow baby, and then 2020 was coming. Didn't want to be part of the system. We did get pregnant again, and we did have another loss. But this one was really interesting, and why I want to bring this up is because it is all connected. And Billy, at that point, because we had been so connected, I knew where she stood on things. I knew I could trust her. I knew how passionate she was about birth. Um, there's a lot of, unfortunately in Canada, and I know in other countries, I feel like there's a lot more leeway in the States, but you have to be so careful with midwives because they're regulated in the system. So even midwives in Canada, you're just bringing the medical system into your home. So I didn't want that because I was speaking out about all of it. I was bringing awareness to the corruption of the medical system and what they were doing, and so I knew Billy was on the other side of that, like an actual wise woman with skills, how it always was before it was adulterated by the medical system. And so that is why I chose Billy. And I chose her for this third, I guess it would have been fourth pregnancy. And I got to, meet her a little bit, get over some of the fears, the NICU programming that I still had, and past that baby was not meant to be. But it was really interesting because I experienced loss differently. So the first one was still system ultrasounds, like, okay, well, maybe you can fix this. Maybe somehow you can make it better. Maybe somehow you can do something and change this outcome. And this loss, I knew that there's nothing. This baby is meant to be here. It will come. If this baby is not, it will have its wings, and it is all for a reason, and usually we don't know. And thank goodness I did not have my faith with the first one, but I had faith again because I just came into faith in 2020, and completely different even having that aspect. And
Mm.
so no tests, no ultrasounds, nothing, and my body just passed that baby. And it was probably about 11 weeks, and I was in denial until I waited. I could have had tested and done this and everything to confirm, but I was like, no, my body will let me know. And so period returned, and I was like, okay, that's what is happening. But it was really interesting going through that. That was even going through loss
Mm.
naturally, as my body wanted to, undisturbed, right? It was just me, my faith, and okay, God, and just surrendering all of it. So it was almost a little bit of practice because people always kind of wonder as well, like, okay, well, if I've had loss, like I need to know, like I need to go in the system, I need to know. But really it comes down to really just surrendering and having faith regardless of that outcome, as hard as that is. And this is a hard conversation to have. And I think, I don't know, I must have felt called to bring it up for a reason because we see this a lot in this world, right? Like we
Mm.
don't want to talk about life or death. And so how did I prepare? Going back to your original question after that long tangent. um, how did I prepare for this, my redemption birth? Well, became pregnant again. I wasn't going to be in fear. It was, again, just full trust. This baby's going to be here or not. Psalms 134, I believe it's 13. God knit baby in the secret place in the womb. I'm paraphrasing, but I just kept
Mhm.
thinking of that. Like, this is a secret place for only God's eyes. That is it. No one else. This is the secret place just for baby, myself, and him. And that's all I did. That is how I prepared. I watched books. I read books. Rachel Reed's book on reclaiming childbirth is really
Love
fascinating.
Rachel Reed's book.
It's the
So
best.
good.
Everyone, if you like, that should be your number one book that you read.
Read that book before you read
Yes.
anything else.
Yes, yes. Of course, all Ina May's stuff was great
Yeah.
just because of the stories, but she's still trained by an OB. Rachel Reed's book was amazing. I did watch births. I did some of the Breach Without Borders training. I was in, the Billy's cohort of traditional birth companions, just people around me talking about
Mhm.
birth differently, sharing stories. I had friends that had, 3 home births and listening to their stories. So connecting and hearing and from one another. And so that is how I prepared, with reading videos, documentaries, but being surrounded by those who have done it and listening to them.
Crucial. Yes, yes. We overlook that so much. It's so hard to go this alone. You really need community. You really need women around you who have walked this path before you. And thank you so much for sharing the way that you went through loss. Because you're right, birth and death are so close together, and women are so afraid to face the reality that with birth comes death. And sometimes babies come and sometimes they don't. And finding a way, which is hard and feels impossible, to be okay living in that in between and in that deep trust in God is really, it's hard, but it's so important. And yes, building community. I think every person that I've interviewed so far on this podcast has said, I had women around me that had done it. I listened to them. I heard their stories. And yes, that I think that is one of the best ways we can prepare. I think there's so many sound bites out there, like in the Instagram world, TikTok and YouTube, of like, ooh, how do you have a natural birth? And it's like, you don't do it with just a couple breathing techniques and a comb. Like, it's going to take months of deep work in of really trusting the physiological process of birth and of listening to the stories of women around, like, online, or preferably in person if you have some women who have done it before you. And that is it. That is what women need more than breathing techniques.
Oh, 1,000%. Because I will say that I did, I was like, okay, I did looked at some of the breathing, but it was mostly a lot of mindset work. Okay, I know it's
Yeah.
possible. I know that they did this. Okay, like, this is how the birth that I expected to have also was like, because I've done so much deep work, I'm going to be able to breathe through this intensity and, like the whole pain free thing,
Mm.
which, bless your heart if you experience that. I mean, it is available to people, but it is not for everyone. And I think sometimes, there's a reason. And for me, I think it was like coming off of, I guess you could call it like the fight that I was in with the medical system. It was like all encompassing. Like, I had to feel it. I had to feel the intensity of everything that I just walked through. It's like, I say, you birth how you live and you live how you birth. And that is literally was my entire experience of, how much do you trust this, and how much will you surrender to this, and can you, keep going. And that was the biggest hurdle, was like, okay, I think the intensity, I don't want to call it pain, but it is, but the intensity is going to be different for everyone for different reasons. And
Yeah.
I think, I had to go through it and to trust it. And that was getting into that part of it. My birth companions, my dear friend Christina, Billy, they just were there as witness. Like, they never spoke. They never said anything. They were there if I had a question, if I needed, if I reached out, but otherwise they allowed me. Like, when I said I fell into this place on the kitchen floor holding the chair, on the kitchen chair
Mhm.
leg, it was pure silence. There's nothing for them to do. They knew I was working through it, and they were there. And it was really interesting because My husband had never experienced this before. We had two hospital births. He was a bystander at the head of the bed at the hospital. And he was a part of this too. And it's interesting because their calmness and confidence allowed him to then give me that calm confidence in his strength and him being the rock because he was able to get that from them. I mean, at one point, there's Christina stayed right by my side. But at one point, there was nothing for Billy to do. So he's like, well, she's playing Sudoku and having a nap. I guess like everything is good. Like this is good, right? Because like, of course, that's what you do. But having the wise women around you and allowing that trust to unfold without being checked, without being talked to, without asking anything was
Oh,
incredibly powerful. It was really interesting because I was 39 weeks. And, I was expecting her to go a little bit later, but babies are so aware. My husband's a high school teacher, and I was doing homeschool. We do a homeschool co-op on Fridays with the kids. I teach a class. Friday, I was on my feet all day teaching, it's our Friday co-op teaching. And that Friday was the start of our March break. And it was so interesting. My husband went out to play poker, and it was like, okay, yeah, because we got another week or so ahead of us. And my back started to ache. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm 39 weeks pregnant. I was on my feet all day. It was a big day, of course. And I was like, I'll have a bath and just relax. And then I'll try and have a nap on the couch. And it was probably around, I'm trying to think when I called him, 11. I let him stay. It was about 11. I was like, oh, this is not just a backache. There's more going on here. So I'm messaging my friend, letting her know it was probably around 10, 11 p.m. And yeah, things are starting to pick up. I remember it was getting kind of intense, and I made a comment where I was like, oh, if this already kind of feels like this, like how am I going to get through like the next? Like this is just the beginning. And she said something to me that I never would forget. She's like, you can't think ahead because then you'll never get through it. You'll always be behind in kind of getting through the waves. She's like, focus on each one as it comes as an individual. Like that is it. And I was like, okay. So it picked up, but I feel fairly quickly. I think they arrived. I was in it pretty deep by 3 a.m. And this is when I was trying, different positions and trying to get comfortable in the shower, out, and just I couldn't. Oh my gosh, that part was so awful. Trying to be in the shower, I was like, water's not working because I needed my husband on my back. That's all I needed. So I found, like I said, that place to collapse where he could just keep his hands pressured on me, and that's where I stayed. But it was kind of a little bit gradual, I guess. Sometime around 5 p.m., the ache, had a bath, and then by 10, 11, I knew things were ramping up. And then by 3 a.m., things were incredibly, incredibly intense. Yeah.
oh, amazing. And so your midwife, well, not midwife, but birth companion, they are arriving around 2 or 3. And then what happens next?
Yeah. This is where I found my spot on the floor, and I stayed there for what I believe. I think I should go back and look at my blog that I wrote about. I had to write it fresh right after, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe I was on the floor for over 2 hours in that spot. I was just visualizing her coming down. I had no ultrasounds or anything, but when the pain started to come, like that Friday,
Mm-hmm.
I knew I'd be meeting baby girl. It just was like, oh, we're gonna have a girl tonight, and so I just kept picturing baby girl, like just my opening and her coming down. That's all I was doing. Okay, I'm opening and she's coming down. And I did that for, I guess, hours. I don't even know. This is the time, right, where you're out of your body, you're out of your neocortex, and or sorry, you're out of your head in your body. Your body takes over and just does what it needs to do. So time, kind of, I have no concept of time, but I do remember all of a sudden that what's called, the catecholamine surge all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
kicked in. And I remember just kind of getting up and just being like, oh my gosh, am I delaying this? Am I delaying this whole process? I thought by just laying on the floor, I was making this go on longer than it needed to be. And that's why I said, am I delaying this? We gotta get things moving. And so all of a sudden that stress, and it must have been 6 or 7, I don't remember anymore. My mom had come by at this point. She was just helping get food and teas and coffees and things going, and I leaned over in the bathroom, found another position. There's the purple line, where you can
Mm-hmm.
see actually, like, what centimeters. And it's interesting because I wouldn't have known this, but afterwards I was told that my purple line was not showing very much, and there was that little bit of like, gosh, like she's actually not that far along yet, is what they were thinking, right? But keeping it to themselves because you don't share.
Yes. Yes.
They're in their own awareness, and letting me have my own experience, which is very, very important. And they're like, okay, well, maybe we can try different positions. So brought me to the bed and did different side. And I was like, nope, can't do that. Tried, I don't remember the names of them, but tried different, rotations and things. And they were just all incredibly uncomfortable. I remember gagging, almost kind of throwing up at
Mm-hmm.
this point, and this was weird to me. And it was a little bit of blood. And I remember being like, but why is there blood? Like, what is happening? And they're like, I think it's just you're dehydrated. You haven't drank. You haven't been able to eat. Like, just it's okay. And it's interesting, right? Our bodies, because I think with like even that gag, like when you do that, like it's pushes
Yep.
further. And it's just so fascinating when you think about the body, like everything is on purpose, like what we need to do to move things along and how things work. And so I was having like these strong gagging reflexes, and Billy went to go do something, get me some, honey or something to sip on, get something. And I found myself on all fours, and I looked down and I was like, there's like a head. Like I had no idea. Like all of a sudden, like just had no idea that she was that close, what was happening. And they tried to call Billy. Like she didn't even come in. Next thing you know, there's like just all of a sudden baby born. I'm on all fours on my bed, just between my hands. She was born on call, like a water balloon. When she came into the bed, the amniotic sac, it burst, there she was, and just started her full cry. And I was just like kind of in that shock. Billy will call it the hot minute. And they all were silent. They all stayed silent, and they allowed me to have that moment of just looking at her on the bed and just thinking, oh my gosh, like we did it. It's the first thing I said to her. We did it. Like, you're here. It was just so incredible. And that moment, and to look at her, and then all of a sudden everything, and that pain, all of it, all the intensity, everything you're feeling is taken away. You're flooded with oxytocin and all these amazing hormones and the bonding and everything. And yeah, in that moment we did it. And I just think how sad so many women don't even experience that gift. Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow. Beautiful story. I have never, to back it up just a smidge, I had never even put two and two together. So many women throw up, in transition or at some point in labor. Of course, your body's doing that. It's another downward force. Like
Yes.
our bodies
Yes.
make no mistakes. Oh,
No.
I love that so much. And I love how, so from the time that they saw that your purple line wasn't as purple as they were hoping it would be, to baby being born, that didn't seem like it was a very long time at all.
It was not. No, it was not. I don't know if it
So
was
sometimes
even an
those things are inaccurate.
hour, maybe less. Yeah, that's what we kind of realized after. So
Mhm.
because well, now it's interesting to go back and hear their perspective and mine. And when I woke up with that stress of like, like, oh my gosh, like, am I delaying this? That shock. And then I looked at Billy, and I was, in tears, and I was tired. And just the back, for those women, if you've had, but like, you just know it does not
Mhm.
stop, right? There's no rest in that. And this is why it can be so important to have wise women around you, because in that moment I was like, Billy, like, I don't know how much more, like, I can do this. And she grabbed my hands and looked at me directly in the eyes and said, you can, and you will. You're safe and you're strong, and you will do this like every other woman before you. And that's what I held on to. Every other woman before me. I can do
Yeah.
this.
If only women were told that. If only all women were told that at that point when they reach the end of themselves or what they think is the end of themselves. If they could look up into any eyes in that room with them and have that reflected back at them and no fear. And not, oh, okay, well, do you want the epidural? Oh, okay. How can we make you more comfortable? Oh, okay. Let's just get this over with. Maybe I can help. No, if I wish that that was what women got to experience. And the thing is we all can. We just have to choose the right person ahead of time.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
choose that support wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I just love your story so much. That was stunning. And I guess I'm curious if you ever felt any, because all you said you suddenly looked down and whoa, like there's a head coming, like, but there was never an urge to push. Would you say it was like the fetal ejection reflex? How was your experience of
Yeah,
that?
that part's really interesting. No, I never had that ring of fire.
Mm,
I never had that moment, and I don't know if it was because of like the gagging, the kind of like odd vomiting that was doing the work, the pushing. I don't. That part is, you're just in the moment, and I don't really recall. I don't. I think I was kind of pushing. All of a sudden I just remember like she's there and everyone being like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I just remember it was just kind of a surprise to me, surprise to them. It was just kind of like, and then there she was. Like, so I don't really remember. I think I saw a head, gave a push, and then there she was.
so
Yeah.
incredible. I wonder if
Mhm.
hands and knees didn't put any pressure or it probably really reduced the pressure on your perineum too. And so maybe the ring of fire experience is different than say if you were like kind of in a lunge or upright or squatting. Like, yeah, there's just so many different ways that women experience birth.
Yes.
And every scenario is so different. And I've heard it said, I think it was Yolanda Norris Clark, the Free Birth Society lady, but she was like, every birth is different and every birth is the same. And it's like so
Yes.
true because every baby comes out, but the way that every baby comes out is so different. And every woman's experience of it and their recollection of it and the way they tell it is different. And
Yes.
yeah, so cool.
Yeah. And I think that kind of, like segues into why it's so important to gather. And it was after that birth, being there supported by these beautiful women, my husband, even my mom, it was so amazing for her to be there and experience. At first, it was a little bit hard, for her to see me like that, but then to see, this beautiful baby just born. And here we are in our bed, in our house. Like my boys woke up at one point, they just stepped over me while I was in that kitchen position. They like went into, the other bedroom, and they just were like everyone was just around. And I think that just it unlocks a whole level of trust and just what it can be. And here we are, we're all together, our home, and here's tea now, and here's fresh blankets, and yeah, and thinking of the delayed cord clamping. I mean, she was attached to her placenta for over 2 hours, and
Yeah, well,
until
let's
she
let's
was
talk about your
ready.
placenta, birthing your placenta. Women, they forget about the placenta, and we need to
Yeah,
hear more physiological placenta births. So maybe tell us what birthing your placenta was like.
yeah, mine, it was, I would say, fairly uneventful. It was just kind of, she was, baby girl was on me. She's rooting around and just loving her and the experience. And I think it was kind of like, okay, do you feel any urge? Do you want to try and, push? And I think I just was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'll give a couple pushes, and then it came out. I don't have any like crazy placenta stories or anything. I think it was maybe 20 minutes later or something. I don't even know the timeline.
So
Just
fuzzy. The time
there
time
it
to
was. Yeah, easy,
oh,
came out whole, and
nothing to be
yeah,
afraid of. Yep, no
no,
big deal.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. But
cool.
interesting stories of my friend who has gone to other births, and it's been hours where it just was not ready, and in hospital setting they'd be pushing and tugging and doing this, but it's like your body will know, and
I
it
don't
did,
know.
and it came out. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so awesome. And I love that your mom was there. What does she believe about birth? Did she have like what did you grow up hearing about birth from her? Because I love
Yeah.
when women give birth and say their mom is there and they have a natural birth, something in their mom is healed too. Because so often our moms also experienced a lot of medical stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think that's exactly what took place. My mom learned from her mom, who had her 5 babies in the hospital. And that's what I was taught. Why be a hero? Just go in. You don't have to, go through that. Why experience that pain if you don't have to? And, that's just the programming. That's just what it was. And she had witnessed my unlearning throughout the years. So a little bit, it was like gradual since 2015. She knew where I stood with the hospital. I mean, I was right around the corner from it. There was no way that I was going to the place that fired me. So that was very strong that I was like, I am not stepping foot into that place. Um, there was trust. My mom watching my transformation throughout the years and even 2020 and beyond. She trusted my decision and who I was, who I had become in that. And I think it was a gift for her to be there just to see, what birth could be, what it is, right? I think there was that healing, and then my children will hopefully have a totally different experience going into it now.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I love that so
Mm-hmm.
much. All right, one final question. If you had a woman sitting in front of you who really wants to have a birth like this, she's maybe experienced some medical trauma in the past, had a birth that she walked away from feeling not powerful and, just wishing it were different. And she really wants to have a natural physiological birth this time. She's feeling some doubt. What would you tell her?
Mm-hmm. Um, that she can, first make that choice, and then own it. But get in the room, gather with the women, gather with the ones that have walked before you, gather with the ones that love birth, see it as sacred, honor it, revere it. Surround yourself with women that trust it, and hear their stories and connect. I think that's one of the most important things you can do is just hear from other women and hear other stories and experiences. Yeah, but first decide that's what you want to do and make that decision without fear. Yeah. And just
Mhm.
know that your body is capable and can surround yourself with those that also believe it. Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. Tell us again where women can find you online and what you've got coming up shortly here
Yeah.
in April. Let us know.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Kristen_Nagle. You can also follow us at Reclaiming Birth Gathering on Instagram. I'm sure the websites for both will be in the show notes, so I won't say those
Yep.
out, but it is Reclaiming Birth Conference is where you'll find it. And yeah, we have one coming up in Montreal, April 12th. We have amazing speakers going to be there. Billy Harrigan will be there, who I reference a lot. Alex Zek from The Way Forward is coming to share a man's perspective. So he will be there. And then we have the 2 day event in October. And I will say, majority of our guests last year came in from the States. So
Wow. Cool.
your dollar goes a lot further in Canada. So it's almost like a little bit on sale
Yes.
for those traveling over the border. But you can find that one in London, Ontario, October 2nd and 3rd. And we have some incredible speakers coming from all across Canada and the States as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kristen. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your stories today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.